everyone. Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Very good morning to you, Rush Nation. Back. It's another morning show. Quite a bit has happened in the last 24 hours. From a fantasy football perspective, I think we're going to start to see more news coming through as the days go on. We're getting very close to training camp now, so I think we're going to see a lot more things. There'll be a lot more things to talk about. We've done a lot of charity league reviews, which is great. Appreciate all the lovely DMs I've had of people who are enjoying the show. So really, really appreciate that. Don't forget, I will answer questions here. So please do put your questions, but I will only answer them in the YouTube comments. Please do give us a like, a subscribe, and a comment as well. It'd be really, really important just to help us grow this show even more and get more eyes and ears on it. So, right, in terms of fantasy football news, let's start with the listener leagues first of all. So, had some sign-ups yesterday. If you missed yesterday's morning show, there is the listener leagues that have been launched. So those that are watching these shows and watching the flagship show are going to get the first dibs on everything. So there is still, everybody's first choice is still on there for the most part. So there is a link in the show notes. Sign up to that. It's £6.50 charity donation. You win a t-shirt if you win the league and a spot in our Champion of Champions. So, all of that is covered by us. So that's what the charity donation is really to help us grow and exceed a huge amount of money for charity. So they're very fun leagues, very engaging with lots of great folks. So please do get entering into those. So let's get into the big news of the last 24 hours, and that's Brandon Aiyuk has requested a trade. Brandon Aiyuk is an interesting scenario. It's been bubbling, I personally think, a little bit too long. And so we've got this really interesting scenario where he didn't get traded before the draft, even though he's going into the final year of his deal. He's pretty much said he's not signing a new deal. And yesterday, he's formally come out and requested a trade. So it probably would have been a few days ago, and it's finally leaked to the media. He's requested a trade. Now, there were reports that came out from insiders that 2 weeks ago, the Patriots were talking to try and get a deal done for Aiyuk, and the 49ers were apparently, and I'll give you the direct quote, reluctant to trade, no intention to trade. No intention. Sorry, let's get the quote right. No intention of trading Brandon Aiyuk. Now, some people on the surface of that will read that and go, well, no intention to trade. So, that's the end of that. He's staying, and that'll be the end of it. Let's color the lines a little bit. No intention doesn't mean no. I don't intend to I don't intend to sit around all day and do it and just work. I intend to go outside. But if things get too busy or if circumstances change, then I will just have to sit at my desk all day and work and not get outside and not go for a walk. Things change. Ultimately, no intention means I don't have an intention at this exact moment to do that. But as the picture of the circumstances change, it's a negotiation term. It basically means what you're offering is we're not even going to discuss it. No intention of trading him. So they're obviously wanting a bit more than what people are offering. But the market's soft on him because they know they'll get him at a good price, because if he doesn't go now or at any point before October, he's out the door in March. Now, teams will want to avoid that. They don't want him to go onto the open landscape. He will get big money. So, teams will want to get a trade done. This also tells you a little bit about what the 49ers think of Ricky Pearsall. So Ricky Pearsall now has gone on to the NFI list. So it's a non-football injury list. That says to me that obviously there's some injury. He didn't do it in the facility, didn't have anything to do with football. But that also says to me that they don't think he's ready. And that's why they're reluctant to trade Brandon Aiyuk at this current juncture. The ideal scenario would be that Ricky Pearsall does camp. He gets through camp. He's showing great things in camp. Shows he's ready. And the 49ers punch the ticket on the trade. But obviously right now they've got no view because they haven't had Ricky Pearsall in the building for that long. And now he's not going to practice. We don't know how long he's going to be on that NFI list for. If he ends up missing quite a bit of camp, he's not going to be football ready getting into preseason, which means he's not going to see a lot of preseason, which means he's going to have to use the first weeks of the season to get football shape. And then you might see a trade for Aiyuk. Or because the 49ers are in a win now window, they might keep him. There is that option there that he could stay. He could stay until the end of the contract. And there is some logic to that. The 49ers are in a window now where they are trying to win a Super Bowl. They're arguably the best team in the NFC, and they're probably in the best position to do that. However, it's very hard to let things go for nothing when you can receive a valuable draft pick. And if they get a day 2 pick, it's going to be a very difficult angle to turn down if it's a good enough pick. Right now, the pendulum says no because Pearsall's not ready. If Pearsall's ready, then that will swing the pendulum back towards making a trade favorable. So that no intention doesn't put me off. My gut instinct says that he will go. It will probably be very close to the football season that he goes. I think it will be literally one of the last bits of preseason or early season, but I think he goes before the trade deadline. So then what does this mean for Pearsall? I would say for Pearsall, it's really simple. He is nothing more than a slight late round dart throw. He's going to be at best 4th target on this team. He's going to need time. Good dynasty asset, but he is not someone I'd be reaching for in drafts on the back of this news because of the fact that you've got this situation of Aiyuk and there's that uncertainty. But then even if he goes, he's still that. If he was nailed on going to be ready to go week 1, I think Aiyuk would be going, and I think he'd be going really soon. So it says to me that they're not convinced that he's ready to take over that role entirely just yet, which means he'll get some play time, he'll get some games, he'll get some snaps, he'll get some targets, but it's not going to be enough to be fantasy worthy. Now, again, could be wrong here, but that's all, if I'm coloring in the lines and I'm reading between them, it's kind of the impression I get. So I'm not swinging big towards Pearsall here because of this news, and I think Aiyuk is someone I would be keeping an eye on. Now, Aiyuk's next destination, it's very well known that the Patriots are in for a wide receiver. That dampens the view on all the wide receivers there a little bit. But we've got to see what happens. There's a few spots that Aiyuk could go to. So we do have to keep an eye on those. So, but that's everything I would say with the Aiyuk trade. No intention is not a no. It's just, I don't want to right now. So that's a few things. Right. Let's get into some updated news. So this is news that's dripped out over the last couple of days. I'm sort of catching them all up now. So Audric Estime should be ready to go for the start of training camp, and this is according to their beat writer at The Athletic. So it looks like he's going to be ready to go. I don't necessarily mean for fantasy this is going to be a huge piece of news. I think he's someone who could be in the mix, but it's a very clogged backfield with Williams, with P. Ryan, with McLaughlin. So it's kind of a non-story, but one to keep an eye on, I guess. Local beat writer for The Athletic also reports that this is Chad Graff, has said that Jalen Parker's clear path to number 1, and then I've just told you that Brandon Aiyuk is a trade target for them. So I think they get somebody in. I think there will be a wide receiver joining the Patriots organization. We will see what happens. We saw that the contract extension deadline passed on Monday. T. Higgins did not sign that. So he will play on his franchise tag. It also means he's very likely to leave unless something changes. So he's not signed an extension. They're not going to be able to agree an extension now until February. Doesn't necessarily mean he is leaving, but we've had instances before. Mike Evans didn't sign an extension. Everyone thought he was off, and then he stayed. I think the big difference is Mike Evans has been in Tampa for 10 years, and there's a clear loyalty there when he's with the same GM who drafted him. He knows the coaching staff, his family is settled, his kids are there. T. Higgins isn't quite, 5 years or 5 years or 4 years. I guess he's second round pick, so 4 years in Cincinnati is not the same as 10 years. So I think it's fine. It's settled. He's not going anywhere this season, so he will play as the number 2. But I don't necessarily expect him to stick around in free agency. That's my current feeling. Talked about Jordan Addison's DUI. DWI. Let's get it right because it might not be a complete drink. So we're waiting to find out. That situation I talked about in yesterday's show. So if you want to listen to my thoughts on that and where I think will happen, but my gut says right now the league will need to come down on this, especially with his teammate being the victim of a traffic accident. I think there's going to need to be something, a college teammate, but there's something that's going to need to be done about this. So I would be a bit cautious now if I'm holding him. Saw some great sort of pictures of Nick Chubb doing some workouts. So he's apparently he's doing some sort of documentary about his recovery, and he squatted what appeared to be 558 pounds. So coming back from that horrific injury, it looks like he's going to be in good shape. So he hasn't done a lot of field work. I don't think he's done any field work in OTAs or minicamp. But it looks like he's going to be in good shape for the start of training camp. Whether that means he is going to be, and we'll know because they'll report next week, whether or not he's going to be physically practicing and hard hitting, or if it's moved along slowly, it all trends towards him starting at the start of the season, not missing time. So that's the first bit of good news. We don't know what that impact is on his injury, but I would say Nick Chubb is a huge, huge value in drafts. I think you're talking about a guy who I've really rarely ever gone too much in because of the injury history, because of the lack of game time, the split role, and the lack of receiving option he gives you. But the fact he's going as like an RB3 or 4 in drafts, I think you can pick him up very comfortably in sort of the RB20s range and feel really comfortable with your investment. He's a lot better than a lot of the players you can get in that range. So I'm definitely happy to just put in on him there and pick him up. So, I think for me, he's going to be putting in, he'll be next to Jerome Ford, and I think that'll be the 1-2 punch. Foreman will be the sort of backup, and Naheem Hines will be the pass catching specialist / returner. So that's how I see that backfield breaking down. So, I feel pretty confident Nick Chubb will be fine to go. One player that's not going to be good to go on the start of training camp will be Keaton Mitchell. He has been put on the PUP list, the physically unable to perform list. So look, he can be moved to active roster at any point until week 1. So this isn't one of these like, oh my word, what's going on? Like, he's recovering from a very serious injury. But he tore an ACL in December. This shouldn't come as a surprise. And because of that, we're looking at 9 months. If he starts the PUP on week 1, he's going to be out 4 weeks. Again, we're looking at maybe him as a backup role with some potential 1B kind of change of pace kind of role. So he's a hard one to draft right now with that injury looming and with Derrick Henry there, and given the amount of money they've paid him and the security and the workload he has carried. But he's worth a late round dart throw, but just keep an eye on that news. Baltimore have a few more that they've put on PUP for you IDP players. Aiyuk, who is a rookie linebacker, someone who they drafted on day 2. He's going to be on the NFI list, non-football related injury list. And then TJ Tampa is another one they've put on the list as well. So, but he's going on the PUP. So there's a few there that are going to be starting camp together, trying to get back to fitness. He's also a rookie. So they've got 2 of their rookies, round 3, round 4, on injury lists. So wonder if they knew that when they drafted them. I don't know. But we are where we are with those. Dustin Hopkins, the kicker, has agreed to a 3-year extension, according to Adam Schefter. So this is, it makes him the 5th highest kicker, this deal. and that basically means that there's no kicker competition in Cleveland. You can draft Dustin Hopkins at will and be happy with that. Kayshon Boutte is on the fringes of these. He was kind of a bit of a hype player last year for the Patriots. He's on the fringes now. They've drafted wide receivers. Might not be someone of fantasy relevance anymore in those super deep leagues. He had some gambling charges that were put against him that could have led to him, being cut from the team. But he had all those charges have been dropped for underage gambling, felony computer fraud he had. And it's called Mike Reese of ESPN. So that just means now that, because apparently he was betting online when he was under the age of 21, when he was in college, all those charges have been dropped. It now means he's fighting for a spot to get on the roster. I mean, it's not really fantasy relevant, but I guess we'll see what happens. One bit of, again, I don't think this is fantasy relevant news, but one sort of name from the past, Quintus Cephas, and former of Eagles fame, and I think he was with Buffalo earlier in the offseason. Quintus Cephas has now rocked up in Houston. He's not going to end up probably on the roster. He's looking at probably a practice squad place, but just funny that his name has turned up on the list there. I talked about Ricky Pearsall. He's already on the NFI list. So again, apparently the injury was sustained away from team activities. So it's not a great sign for the 49ers. It just see what happens with the situation we have to monitor over the next sort of couple of weeks, maybe to a month or so. One bit of really interesting fantasy news is that Theo Johnson is also going to go onto the PUP list. He is dealing with a hip injury. So for me, this is really important. It's about 3 weeks until preseason kicks off. So if for me, at the moment, I've got him winning that job over Daniel Bellinger. But if he is not available for preseason and he's a rookie and he's behind and he doesn't know the playbook, I'm going to Daniel Bellinger. This is after the retirement of Darren Waller, of course. So if you have Theo Johnson shares, this is one you need to be a little bit concerned about, because this is the sort of situation he's coming in with not the best draft capital, 4th round pick. I have him over Bellinger. But if Bellinger gets the job because of this injury, this hip injury, and he doesn't relinquish this, Theo Johnson is dust. So it's one to really be watching as a fantasy player now. So Theo Johnson going to the PUP list, it's one to really keep an eye on. It's very, very important. One big piece of IDP news, Peyton Turner. He missed almost all of last year with a turf toe injury, but he underwent back surgery as well in the offseason. He seems to have a lot of injuries. He did come back and play in the Week 18 win over Atlanta, but he is now looking like he's going to be healthy, getting ready for training camp. So if you have lots of shares of him in IDP, that's good news for you. And then more good news, and this broke sort of overnight, is that Daniel Jones is going to be avoiding the PUP list, and he will be active for training camp. So he went on a podcast yesterday. I think it's a Chris Sims podcast, and he basically came back and said that everything's good and he doesn't need to go on the PUP, and basically he won't have any limitations and he should be ready to go in week 1. So you might hear some stories in the first week of training camp that he might be a little bit behind, or he's a little bit like he's not doing full contact. Doesn't matter. He's not going to be on the PUP. He's there. He's practicing. He's good to go in my eyes. If you're just there at this point, that's a pretty good sign. So if you're worried about the Daniel Jones injury, you don't need to be. The bigger worry is the re-injury. But he is good to go. He will be the week 1 starter for the Giants. So that covers all the injury news and all the latest news up to date. We'll start doing some FFCC breakdown ready for the tournament next week, and we'll start doing some divisional stuff over the next couple of weeks, breaking down each division, each offense, things to know, things to keep interest off, values, etc. So there's lots of stuff going on the morning show. Thank you very much for subscribing and being part of an early adopter of this show. Lots more will come out in the coming weeks, and I'm looking forward to bringing you on a journey and hoping delivering some ships for you. But that's all for today. Enjoy the rest of your morning, and don't forget, as always, keep rushing.